Jon Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I got to start with this. Sunday, January 19th, 2014. You guys are playing Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. I rewatched that game yesterday, and 16-0 at halftime.
Yep.
Third quarter with, I believe, roughly 5 minutes to go. You guys line up for a field goal. Walk me through that. I want to know whose decision it was to go for
Yep.
that. What was going through your mind, and the nerves that you may have had during that play.
Yeah, we were a very scheme-oriented team, so we didn't have that fake in all year. We put that fake in on Thursday for a Sunday game. That was the first time we practiced that. Practiced it a few times on Thursday, a few times on Friday. We knew the look we were probably going to get. They had lined up in that look all the time. It was kind of my job to whether call it off or call it on once they did call it. But you don't think too much about these things because we have when you give a fake in, it's about a 1 out of 10 chance you're actually going to run it. Very rarely does the perfect situation come up where you actually run it. So we kind of need like a mid-range, 30 to 40-yard field goal, somewhere in that range. And, just nothing was going for us that day. It was awful. We couldn't figure anything out. And the fake was called Charlie Brown. I just remember kind of running on the field, looking back at the special teams coach. He goes, Charlie Brown. I go, wow, we're doing this thing. So you just kind of go into a football mode right away. Obviously, you kind of looking to make sure you have the right front and what side we're going to run it to. And they come out and they line up, and I was just like, wow, this is either going to be the best 10 seconds of your life or the worst 10 seconds of your life. And thanks God, it was the better.
Who had the most pressure on him? Was it you or was it Gary Gilliam, the rookie lineman who had to catch that ball?
Hey, I think it was me, to be honest. If you watch that fake, it's to the left, and I come out of there flying because it was a run first option. They wanted me to run if it was there,
Okay.
and the whole option was to put AJ Hawk, who was the linebacker there, put him on an island. Give him a 2-for-1. He either come up to me and I'm going to pass it. He sinks into coverage. I'm going to run it. And when I came around that corner, it looked pretty open, and then AJ kind of bit on it. So Gary was wide open, so I just had to flip it to him. And thank God it worked out the way it did and sparked our comeback that day. A comeback that no one would have ever thought, a punter throwing a touchdown, an onside kick, a 2-point conversion by another Canadian, Luke Wilson.
Yep.
It was just like one thing after another. I don't know if you believe in miracles, but that's as close as it comes to a miracle that day.
Well, my son and I, our whole family were huge Seahawks fans. In fact, I have a picture of us in Seahawks jerseys from that day watching that game, and we were losing our minds. It was hilarious. I know when you picked up the ball and you started running, like you said, it was a run first option. But when you decided to throw, it was almost this shot put style throw.
Yeah.
Like you were just like, get it to Gilliam and just make sure he gives him something that he can handle. And it all turned out well. Even at that, though, I mean, at 16-7, you still went down 19-7. You're 3 minutes left in the game. And still got the onside kick somehow, tied, goes to overtime, and then you win it in overtime, which was obviously a great day for all Seahawks fans and great day for you. And you guys had previously won the Super Bowl the year before. So this sent you back to the Super Bowl, and we don't want to talk about the game against the Patriots. Nobody does. But what a fantastic moment in your career. Let's talk a little bit about your career, Jon. Obviously born in Regina. Played at Sheldon Williams High School, went to the U of R. Let's talk a little bit about, your journey and what I want to focus on, obviously, because people understand that you're from Regina, but it's a Saskatchewan kid making it to the greatest football league in the world in terms of level. Only 12 players from Saskatchewan have ever made the NFL and played a game, 5 in the modern era. And then there was 7 back in the 1930s and 40s. You are the most prolific in terms of games played, length of career, and the only Saskatchewan-born player to ever win a Super Bowl. But let's talk about that journey, because in effort over results, we focus on the effort. The results happen, but we focus on the effort. So, tell us about that football journey from a young boy in Regina. But what I really want to focus on is how do you go from Regina to Winnipeg a couple years in the CFL and then a shot at the NFL. Give us a synopsis of that.
Yeah, I just grew up playing all sports. I absolutely loved them. 7 years old, I started playing football. I love being on the field so much. I just basically said, like, Dad, how do I stay on the field longer? And he's like, kick and punt and return kicks and punts. And that's what I did, all the way up through Pee Wee football, Bantam football. I played running back or receiver, and then also kicked and punted and returned
Yep.
kicks and punts. It all kind of stemmed just from my love of football. Because people always ask, like, how did a kid from Saskatchewan start punting footballs at 7 years old? And I obviously love it, still love it, but it was just overall for my love of the game. I just wanted to do as much as I possibly could. And luckily enough, we have such a great minor football system in Regina that I got to start playing at a young age and got to play, I literally played every level of football in Regina. I played touch football, I played Pee Wee football, I played Bantam, high school, university, and later on with the Rough Riders. And
Yeah.
it always meant a lot to me to be where I'm from. And as you said, not a lot of guys have been able to do it. So I always take a lot of pride in that. And, going to Sheldon Williams, then coming out of there, really only having one offer to go to any university. I had no offers in the U.S. And Frank McChrystal came to me and asked if I wanted to be a Ram. And, I took it. And it was, kind of those last 2 years there, last 3 years when I kind of started to, take off a little bit in terms of being a little bit more confident on the field and seeing that I could compete with these guys, especially as a punter. And fortunate enough to be drafted by Winnipeg in 2004. And once again, struggled a little bit in my first year, but had a really good second year and kind of started getting attention from NFL teams. And that offseason worked out with the Green Bay Packers, and they signed me. And, the rest, I guess, is history. But that was kind of my path. And, you do, as you said, you have these goals, but it was always just about playing football. I just loved it so much. So all that effort stuff for me was easy because that's the stuff I loved. And, as a result of that, some of those goals were fulfilled.
Yeah. Speaking of goals, I know that, when I came out of high school and I played at Holy Cross in Saskatoon, obviously another powerhouse high school program, ended up down in the States now on a scholarship to Washington State. But at what point, like for me, I know at a point at Washington State, I was like, oh, I think I could make pro. I didn't know if that was CFL or NFL. At what point were you like, I'm going to make CFL, or at least that is a goal of mine?
Uh, it was definitely a goal of mine, probably at 8 or 9 years old, to play in the
Okay.
CFL. And when I was with the Rams, I had Frank McChrystal, who I love, one of the biggest inspirations in my life. And he used to just be in my ear since I was 18 years old. Just say, Johnny, you're gonna play in the NFL someday. You're playing on Sunday someday, just over and over and over again. And you start to believe it. You start to believe in yourself. But when I had a guy like that who I looked up to so much, is constantly being in my ear, telling me what was going to happen someday, you start to believe it. You really start to work towards that goal. And I think that was a big reason why I could do it. I know that in my second couple years with the Rams, I definitely saw that I could compete with anyone in the CFL, and was given that opportunity. I knew if I wanted to play in the NFL, I would have to go through the CFL because, literally, once again, just like coming out of high school and no one really gave me that much respect, it's the same thing coming out of university. My fourth year, I remember my dad calling an agent and asking if they would represent me, and he said, I only want to represent guys that have a chance to make it. And I always remember that. And I always feel like, you feed off some of that stuff, but as I went on with my career, I think I fed a lot more off love than hate. But yeah, it was quite the journey, and that's kind of when I started to believe that there was a chance.
And did it start with, like you said, 8 or 9, like I want to play CFL, that's a goal of mine. When did that switch to NFL?
I would say later on in my university career, I thought that there was a shot, and then, as I said, I went to Winnipeg in '04 and didn't have a very good year, and
Yeah.
worked my tail off all off season, and came back and was able to break a couple records that year in the CFL, and that kind of started to give me the attention from the NFL. So I think it was really in that second year when I started to really believe that there was a shot I could do it. I could say I could start to see a path. When you're kicking on a football field at Sheldon Williams, it's hard to see a path to go from Sheldon Williams to the NFL. It really
Yeah.
is. And when I started to have success in the CFL, I could finally see a path that the road could lead to.
Excellent. One of the things that we focus on with effort over results, and this goes back to, I mentioned this in the pre-show about the growth mindset and the concept of really learning from all mistakes. It's either you win or you learn. You don't really lose, but you learn from mistakes. But the growth mindset and what effort over results basically means is praising, especially young people. I mean, I'm sure you've done some coaching yourself. I've done coaching of young amateur athletes. When you're teaching students, even your own children, The growth mindset basically says it's better to praise them for the effort they put in than for the result that came out. And there was actually studies that were done, and it did prove that the children that were focusing on mostly just the effort and had less pressure on them to produce results did better in the long run. So let's go back once again to your childhood growing up, and let's say pre-NFL, pre-CFL. So let's go up to university. But let's talk about some of you'd mentioned Frank McChrystal as an inspiration. Teachers, people in your life that really you can say, yeah, I remember them focusing on praising me for the work ethic, for the effort that I put in, as opposed to, you're just a phenomenal punter, you're just a phenomenal athlete, you're so great at everything, but focus a little bit more on the effort that you were putting in and the process and the journey that goes into it. Who can you remember from growing up from that?
Well, I think a lot of that was my parents. They just wanted us to do what we loved, and I obviously loved football, all sports really at a very young age, and they just encouraged me. A lot of the other parents, they give money for goals or money for championships. It was a very, very popular thing back in the 80s when kids would get paid for how many goals they score in a game. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't believe in that at all. They didn't believe in, as you said, that goal. You can have that goal, but they're more about the process and just praising us for just doing what we did and just for what we loved. And it was never about that end goal.
So you touched upon your parents. I know your father Bob passed away several years ago, but I know that that's still probably a turning point in your life. I believe you had just signed with Green Bay. That was your first opportunity in the NFL. How did that affect you in terms of having to deal with the pressures of your first NFL contract, playing at the highest level, and then dealing with the struggles and the emotions that come with that, Jon?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt, the hardest year of my life. I was, fighting my butt off. You know how it is in pro football. It's not year to year; it's day to day. You're fighting for your job every single day. And as a completely unproven Canadian kid in Green Bay, I felt like I had to do that every single day, and it was a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress going to work every day, knowing that you're going to have to basically fight for your life as a pro athlete. And then to kind of have that stress added, my dad coming to training camp that year and telling me then at training camp that he had cancer. Later on in October, we found out that it was terminal. And then he passed away December 1st. So going through all that and knowing, I'm in a new country. I'm living 1,000 miles away. I don't really have any friends outside the football team. And NFL is a little bit different than the CFL, where, CFL, when the day is over, guys went and hang out together. In the NFL, it's a little different. After a 12, 13-hour day, guys just kind of go their own way. So, I didn't have much of a support system in that way. And knowing that my father is 1,000 miles away in palliative care on his deathbed was, something that was very difficult to work through that year.
Did that, do you feel that affected your performance in any way, or did you use it maybe as some inspiration or motivation? Obviously he was very proud of you, but just to continue to be able to enjoy watching you play. What was that roller coaster like for you, Jon?
Yeah, I always try to draw from things like that, motivation like that. And I knew that, football was always a great escape for my family, especially during that time. It was 3 hours every Sunday afternoon where they didn't have to think about cancer. They didn't have to think about what was coming next. They just got to sit there and watch the Green Bay Packers and watch their brother and their son, play football. So that was always really important for us. And yeah, it was. You draw from a lot of that stuff, but at the same time, there comes a point where you don't have it in you anymore. I had a situation during that season. Quick story. We played a Monday night game in Seattle, so we fly from Green Bay to Seattle. That's a long flight. Play in the snow. Fly back. I land Tuesday morning at like 5 a.m. Get a call from my family, say you got to come home now. It's not looking good. I have to take a little four-seat Cessna to Saskatchewan that very afternoon. Go in and say goodbye to my dad for the last time. Fly back to Green Bay. Practice on Friday or practice on Thursday. Get a call Friday morning from my mom right when I'm walking to the facility that dad died. Play the game on Sunday. Fly back to Regina to have my dad's funeral. Fly back to Green Bay. Get on the team flight. Fly to San Francisco. Play a game on Sunday and fly back. And it was that game in San Francisco, I'll never forget it because I did not play good. And you want to play good for your dad, you want to play good for your family, but I just said I literally I got nothing left.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically, mentally, I literally had nothing to give at that point. I always said that the NFL is kind of day to day, but when I was in that situation over that period of time and in that period of time in my life, it was literally just having to say to yourself, put your right foot in front of your left, and your left in front of your right, and keep on doing that all day because that's how I could get through those days. It was that difficult at the time.
Yeah, I mean the travel schedule in pro football is already hectic enough. And you're literally living out of a suitcase for, basically for 18 weeks or longer. You get home, you're unpacking, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to do. I mean, that was probably, it was the entire season that your dad he was sick, but then that 2 to 3 week period there towards the end, and I want to be as respectful as possible, but that just back and forth. I mean, I would like to think that the team respected that. And was there any point where I just can't play this week, and you considered taking a week off and then bringing in another guy just for the week, or were you feeling like, hey, I'm a rookie, I can't even take a chance to take a week off? I mean, pro football is so demanding. How did you and the team handle that in the moment?
I think there was all those emotions and all those thoughts that went through my head. The Green Bay Packers are absolutely phenomenal with me. They gave me my space, let me kind of call the shots a little bit, to be honest. And as you said, in pro football, you never want another guy sitting in your locker wearing that jersey on the field. But at the same time, I knew who my dad was and who the relationship that we had, and I knew that he would not want me to miss a game. And so I really drew from that. That meant a lot to me because I knew that I was going to go out there for him every Sunday, and I didn't. Proud to say that I didn't miss a game and kind of fought through that, and a lot of that was just doing it for him.
Yeah. What do you take forward from the years you had together, but then even in his passing, like what are some of the things? And I know you and I talked about you and Sarah don't have kids, but I mean, I'm sure you do some coaching, you work with young people, but what are some of the lessons? What are some of the values that you bring from the Ryan family, from Bob Ryan, your father, forward to people you work with, kids you may coach, even people you encounter in day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the way he lived his life. I think that he was that big guy that led by example. He wasn't going to give you a big inspirational quote or tell you how to do things. He would sit down and talk with you, and by the time you were done talking to him, you'd kind of figured out what you were going to do with any kind of situation that you brought to him. And I think I remember after he died, someone said, "What's the best advice your dad ever gave you?" And I started thinking, I was like, I've never learned more from a human being in my entire. I don't remember him ever just giving me advice, because I watched the way he led by example and the way he did that, and I really thought that he was a leader of people. And later on in my NFL career, I was very proud that I was named team captain for my last 4 years in the NFL,
Right.
and that's voted for by your teammates. And I was always considered myself a quiet leader. I wasn't going to give up in front of the team and give them a big speech, but I was going to be the first guy in the meeting room every day. I was going to be on time to everything, early to everything. I was going to work out harder than anyone else on the team. As a result of that, when I did talk, people listened. And I think they had respect for that and they watched me. And I got all that from my dad. So that he was the biggest influence in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, let's move on to let's get out of Green Bay. Let's move on to Seattle, obviously where you spent a lot of years, a fan favorite, a kicking punting legend. We'll say punting because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't consider yourself a kicking legend.
By no means.
Exactly. A lot of years in Seattle. Obviously, once again, like I said, a fan favorite there. What was it like being part of that group, that team, especially in those Super Bowl run years, Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, the Legion of Boom? Like what an incredible locker room to be involved with and be a part of that team and be an integral part of that team. I mean, I know you were never named to the Pro Bowl. I took a look at some of the names that were on the Pro Bowl punters list the years you were in the league, and man, there's some legends there. So tough to crack that list. But what's it like being part of that, and what do you take away from those years in Seattle? Let's talk about those friendships and really what you learned from the decade plus in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it was a great time. Obviously, what everyone wants to talk about when we talk about that time is, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, all those years when we were going to the playoffs every year, the Legion of Boom, Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson kind of coming out of nowhere to be one of the best. Richard Sherman coming out of nowhere to be one of the best. It was just such a special time. And you look back at it with the those there was a real brotherhood within that locker room. Guys really had each other's backs. We were a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of big characters, a lot of alpha males all in one room. And sometimes it was chaos, but it always came back down to that brotherhood and those friendships. And I keep in touch with a few of those guys still. And we were actually back last year for the 10-year anniversary of the Super Bowl in Seattle. And when you see those guys, it's like no time has passed at all. Every single one of them, it's like stepping right back into that locker room 10 years ago. There's literally guys there that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And it was just so much fun to kind of have that anchor point that we can all kind of tie ourselves to and come back and have that in common every, whatever it's going to be 5 or 10 years. But it was just a really special time, that whole time I had there.
I mentioned before, in terms of Saskatchewan players playing in the NFL, you're the most prolific in terms of number of games played, numbers of years played. Obviously, the only Saskatchewan-born player to win a Super Bowl. But after your time in Seattle, short stint in Buffalo, very very short stint in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But let's even
it felt long though.
let's talk about Saskatchewan with the Rough Riders, because a dozen or so years in the NFL, and at that point you're probably 34, 35 years old when you leave the NFL. The opportunity to come home and play for your hometown team, the Riders, was that sort of a childhood dream fulfilled, to be able to don the green and white? Was it something, hey, you know what, I want to just extend my football career for a few more years because I know I still got the leg in me? Like, what was that thought process, and what were the feelings like going back to Regina and playing for the green and white?
Yeah, it was a lot of all those things, to be honest with you. I was born in 81, and I had season tickets for the Riders from 1990 until the day I was drafted in 2004. So, I had season tickets since I was, 8, 9 years old, and just really fell in love with football through the Rough Riders. I looked up to all those guys. I remember going to the games with Aldag and Fairholm and Kent Austin and Ridgway, and all those guys I really looked up to. And then, going and playing in the NFL. And I think that most people kind of thought at, 30, 37 years old, I'd kind of step aside and hang them up. But to be able to come back and kind of live out that childhood dream of putting on the green and white was a big driving force to come back and do it. And as well, I have 12 nieces and nephews all back in Regina. My mother's still alive. And to be able to come out and watch me play every other week for a couple of years, it meant a lot to me, because, a lot of them, they might get to one game a year when I was in Seattle, but
right,
to be able to come there and, watch Uncle John play every week, that was definitely a driving force behind things, and that it really meant a lot to me. And as well, I wasn't, I don't know if you'll meet too many people in your life that love football as much as me, because, at that point, obviously it wasn't about the money. It was just about coming back and keep on playing football and keep on playing football in the place where I was born. It meant a lot.
Well, I know the people of Saskatchewan were very excited to have you back. I mean, you weren't just another guy joining the Riders. I mean, this is a punter, a guy who played NFL, still had a lot of leg left in him, and we certainly appreciated your time here. I want to wrap things up here in the next few minutes. So let's talk about what you're doing now. I know earlier this year you signed a one-day contract with the Seahawks just to retire a Seahawk, which is awesome. Obviously a legend there. But let's talk about baseball here for a few minutes. You decided to become part of a collegiate summer league, so part owner of the of the Portland Pickles team, and then also in 2021, that was 2017, and 21, the Cleburne Railroaders out of Cleburne, Texas, which is just southwest of Dallas Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. So why baseball? Why ownership in baseball teams? Especially teams that are like at that, maybe even AA or A or even lower level. Like, what's the excitement there for you?
There's a lot. I grew up a big Blue Jay fan, obviously being a Canadian kid. Really loved baseball. Never played much of it because I played a lot more lacrosse, and that was kind of my spring game. But I always loved baseball. And then when I moved to Wisconsin, they had a collegiate wood bat summer league team there, as well as a single A team. And I just started going to those games and obviously loving the product on the field, but kind of being more fascinated with the business side of it, with concessions, with the mascots, with the in-game activity and the promotions and all those things where I was like, wow, I could really get into this. And as my career went on and I kind of got into the last couple of years in Seattle there, I kind of wanted to have something ready to go. I didn't want to be the guy that sat on the couch for 5 or 10 years waiting to see what was next. So I found a business partner here in LA, and him and I bought the Portland Pickles, and it's something that's really taken off. It's become profitable for us and
Right.
a lot of fun. And the biggest thing for me just keeps me in that competitive mode. Being able to go to the ballpark every day and see these young guys. They're all NCAA Division I players, really good ball players, and see them try to go for their dreams. And last year we had 5 guys drafted, so you get to see those guys move on to the next step of their career, and just the competitiveness of being able to watch the game and really know all the players and have your hand in on it has been great. It's one of those things that I was able to kind of step right in from football, right into the business side of baseball. Didn't really miss a beater. As I said, it's been great, and I'm so thankful that I did that, because it not only keeps me in the game, but keeps me busy.
Yeah, I mean, when you finish an NFL or a pro ball career, I mean, most guys, and we're not going to get into financials or anything, but I mean, certainly have some money or enough money to be able to kind of do what they want once they retire. Getting into the baseball thing is phenomenal. So let's talk about you and your wife Sarah have been together. I think you said 11 years.
Been together 11, married 8.5. Yeah.
Married 8.5. Comedian, actress. Who's the bigger name in the household?
Oh, she's a way bigger name than I have. Yeah, I have little pockets in the world where people recognize me and know my name in Regina and Seattle, obviously. But no, she has a much bigger name than me, and that's honestly that's the way I like it.
So, sorry, where are you guys now? Are you down in Southern California?
Yes, we're in Los Angeles.
Okay, so when you walk down the street, people are going to recognize her more from her roles on TV and her stand up, and they're like, "Who's this guy?"
Absolutely, absolutely. As I said, that's the way I prefer it. So I like it when she gets recognized and she gets kind of that recognition of the things that she's done.
Excellent, excellent. So let's wrap things up here, John. Let's talk about the latest venture. This is something that you and Sarah put together, which is a new podcast called The Book List. And obviously, play on words. I heard the first episode where you talked about it's calling the book list, and you fully admit it, your speech impediment.
Yep. Yep.
Call it the book list. What inspired that, and is that just something fun for you and Sarah to do, or is it's something that has maybe a little bit of purpose behind it?
I think it's a combination of a few things. First of all, the name of it, the book list, is I think it's something that in the last 11 years since I met Sarah, I don't think, if not for her, I don't think I'd be on this podcast right now. I wouldn't be doing my own podcast. I wouldn't be doing much because I was self-conscious about the way I speak, and she really got me to kind of come out of my shell and say that who cares, who cares? And I kind of had this kind of epiphany after that, being like, well, the voice that I hear more than anyone's voice in the world is my own voice, and I sound totally normal. So when you kind of flip it and think, well, everyone else has a speech impediment, you talk normal, you kind of get a lot more confident. And I'm able to sit in front of a microphone now and tell people if you don't like it, you can switch it off. That's fine with me. And so that's where the name came from. Which just kind of, I thought it meant something to me because I gained a lot more confidence in speaking openly since I met her. But it just came also from her and I, we like to read. We're both avid readers, but we read very different books, and it's kind of flipped about what most people would think. Sarah likes a psychological thriller. I like a nice hallmarky romance type story. So every month we put out a book, and 1 month it'll be mine. We'll talk about it for the month. We'll do 3 episodes just based on some of the topics that are brought up in the book, but then really give it a review on week 4. And then the next month we'll do her book. So we've been going for a month and a half now and just having a lot of fun with it. And we're definitely going to keep it going, and hopefully people listen.
Well, I listened to the latest episode. You guys have great chemistry. It's a lot of fun. The fact that you like the Hallmark romance type stuff, and she's the one that the horror thrillers is interesting. Kind of flip the script on that one. So fun there. Hey, John, let's finish here. Once again, getting back to effort over results and just the concept of working hard, and because there's a lot of people out there in all walks of life that feel that especially with social media, it's all about success. It's all about showing people how much you've succeeded in terms of the cars you drive, the houses you live in, the money you make, the job you have, and you've played at the highest level in NFL. What would you tell young people that are, because I know this much. You often see younger people who are starting out, and this isn't just in sports, it's in business, it's in all walks of life. They'll look to people who already have millions. They'll look to the people who already are hugely successful, or at least successful in society's mind, and they want to be that. But there's nobody wants, what is it? Everybody wants the view, but nobody wants the climb.
Yep.
What do you what do you tell, let's say, young people younger than you? How do you get them to believe in the process? How do you get people to believe in the fact that it is literally just a day-to-day thing? It's just doing something each and every day and being consistent. And I know you must have had to do that to get to where you did. And in sports, what's that message you would give to that group of people who are struggling to see the light at that end of that tunnel?
Yeah, I think it's a hard time right now because I hear when I was growing up, I loved football. I wanted to play football. The more I played football, the better I got. The more notoriety I got as a result of that. And now kids kind of feel like I want to be famous, and now how do I get there? They skip the whole process. They just want to go to the end,
Yeah.
and they kind of don't realize the whole process to go there. I always say that everyone's jealous of what I have, but no one's jealous of how I got it. And
Right.
that's where, because how I got it was the process.
Yeah.
And my biggest advice to kids right now is do what you love, because to be the best at anything, you got to put in, thousands and thousands of hours.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if I didn't love football, I didn't love kicking a football, it would have been impossible to put in 10,000 hours of picking up a football, kicking it, picking up another one, kicking it, and just doing that day after day after day. And the reason I did is because I loved it, and
Yeah.
as you get older, you realize you have these goals. And I realized pretty early on in my career, maybe mid career, where every year I was writing all these goals, and I wrote these goals and I wouldn't achieve those goals, and then the next year I'd write the same goals and didn't achieve the goals, and I realized I was missing the whole entire in between. It's fine to have these goals, but now tell me how you're going to get there. I would just try to get 1% better every day. If you're either getting better or you're getting worse, but nothing's staying static. So just working towards that 1% every day. It sounds like such a small amount. That's what you have to do to kind of do that process to get to that final goal.
That's phenomenal, John. I really appreciate. Let's end on that. Thanks very much for your time today. It's been fantastic. I wanted to keep this short. I know you guys are busy down in LA. Best of luck with the book club, with the pickles and with the railroaders and everything that you do down there. Thanks very much, John.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.